everybody, Mr. Wagstaff here. Cool stuff to talk about. You'll like this today. So today we are continuing our unit on early colonization. We are now up to, we have developed, Jamestown and the Virginia colony, which is a collection of colonies, the settlements. It's not like one little town. We have the New England colonies, which are really far north, which is like Massachusetts is what we'd call today, with the Pilgrims and the Puritans. Today we're going to start talking about the middle colonies. All right. So, put myself over here in the middle. In the middle, top right, I saw the word middle, said middle. All right. So, the middle colonies. How do I want to? Let me show you a map. All right, we'll start out with a map here. So, the middle colonies are the green ones here, all right? They're called the middle colonies. A lot of times when people start thinking like New England colonies, middle colonies, southern colonies, they start trying to think about present day, the east coast of the United States, and you're like, all right, New England colony, that's got to be like New York and Pennsylvania, so that means the middle colonies, it's going to be like Virginia, and then like southern colonies, that's going to be like Florida. You'd be all off, all right? So, yes, the New England colonies are the furthest north, but that is like super north, all right? New York is going to be in the middle colonies, all right? And the middle colonies because it's between the two, and then the southern colonies, all right, which is really anything from Maryland down. All right, we haven't talked about the southern colonies except for Virginia a whole lot yet. We will. But today we're going to focus a lot on these middle colonies. So there's a lot of different groups that are going to show up here in the middle colonies. These guys are going to show up. You got a lot of diversity here. You're going to have some Dutch. You're going to have Germans. You're going to have all different types of people that are showing up. Down here in Virginia is basically just going to be Maryland down is a lot of farming because of the temperature, and a lot of it's going to deal with cash crops and tobacco. The New England, that's Puritans. If you're going to show up here in the New World, you got to go be Puritan in order to live in a Puritan society. So this is, the green is the middle colonies, New York, Pennsylvania, Delaware, New Jersey. This is a diverse place. You can come in and they will trade with both New England and the southern colonies, but they can come up and be merchants and do different types of things. So it's probably the most diverse group that exist at the time, as between the three groups of colonies, with New England at the top, the middle colonies, and then the southern colonies. So the question is, what was the main difference between the middle colonies and the northern Puritan colonies? So I think you know enough about northern Puritan colonies and how the middle colonies aren't like that. So take some time here, write 2 sentences on these. As always, pause me if you need to. All right. So let me show you this map here. This is called New Netherland. All right. Was right in here. So this is what is present day New York City. Down here is going to be Manhattan. All right. So the Dutch had came in and colonized this. They're like, dibs! There's so much land. Nobody's going to fight over it. Well, the Netherlands and England had beef somewhere else on Earth, and basically the Dutch had to make a decision. Are we going to keep New York, right? Or are we going to keep our colonies that we have down in South America? I mean, you got to imagine, you have these Puritans, these intense religious groups over here. You're like, I can't imagine that working out. So they really believe that they're going to make more money by having their South American colonies than they are here. So they give up New York here. So New Amsterdam gets given up. So it's interesting how New York City came to be. So Peter Minute is a Dutch man who goes over to the Native Americans and buys Manhattan for like a few trinkets, is what they always say, which is like next to nothing. All right. So Manhattan is the most expensive land on Earth today. So it's always an interesting story how he was able to do that. So here's why. So it's the mouth of a river. I mean, Indians like that too. It's the mouth of a river. That's great. However, what's unique is it is a deep water port that is a relatively safely defended deep water port. The only other one was further up here than Boston. All right. So it is an awesome deep water port. So you have these big ships come in like right next to the coast and unload stuff. It's fantastic. Everybody wants a deep water port. The Indians just really want an entrance and exit to the sea. They're using canoes. It doesn't matter if it's a deep water port. Their canoes aren't very deep. They're not using big boats. So Manhattan is considerably more valuable to the colonists than they ever would have been to the Native Americans, and that's probably why the Native Americans sold it for what we would view today as nothing. But the Indians were probably happy with it at the time when they sold it. Now, over time, you know, the treatment of Indians is never positive. Like, really any point here, the treatment of the Native Americans is never in benefit to the Native Americans. But number 28, why would the New Amsterdam or Manhattan today have been more valuable to the Europeans at the time than it would have been to Native Americans? And we just talked about that. So answer that in 2 complete sentences. As always, pause me. All right, Pennsylvania. So let me go back to this map here. Boop, boop, boop. Where I got another map up here. Where I'm at. Pennsylvania. All right. So Pennsylvania gets given to William Penn. So the king owed him a favor and was going to give him some land and gives him Pennsylvania. That is the land that is a massive piece of land that he is given. So William Penn comes out here. That's why it's called Pennsylvania, is named after William Penn. So William Penn comes out here and he is a Quaker. So Quakers are another devout religious group. All right, they're very different than the Puritans. They are pacifists. Means they don't fight. Like, yeah, what if you punch them in the face? They'll let you punch them in the face. Like it's. I don't know if I've cut out to be a Quaker because I don't know if I could be a pacifist. That no matter what happens, they do not fight. Right. Now, think about this. There's a whole bunch of Native Americans, and most people didn't want to venture way deep into these colony areas because there's Indians over there arguing over lands. The Quakers got along great with everybody. Guess why? They don't fight. When the Indians see that the Quakers refuse to fight, the Indians are relatively cool with them. The Quakers have as far as everybody else goes, has a really good relationship with the Native Americans, and they get along beautifully by comparison to the other groups. All right, like everybody's going to have beef at some point. But so Pennsylvania, the Quakers and William Penn come in, and the Quakers very much become a huge part of Pennsylvania culture as they move out there with William Penn as their leader. So you have seen a picture of William Penn, probably. All right. So let me show you this picture. This is William Penn. This is William Penn. Quaker's oatmeal. That's William Penn. It's literally named after, like, I don't know if he made it or not, but I do know that the picture of him. Let me move that out of the way. Oh, I made myself disappear. The picture of on Quaker oatmeal is William Penn, who was a Quaker. So this is the actual picture of William Penn, and this is him on the oatmeal. So you've probably seen him before. All right. So what is a pacifist, and how would they interact differently with local Indian tribes than non-pacifists? All right. That is a pretty clear-cut case here. I mean, if you think about it, on how they're going to be different and interact differently with Indians than people that will kill them. So the fact they went in as pacifists, the Native Americans are not a vicious people. They will fight back, and vicious things can absolutely happen. But typically, if you're not messing with the Indians aren't going to mess with you. And so therefore the Quakers and the Native Americans in the middle of Pennsylvania got along better than a lot of the other colonists and Indians did in other areas. All right, and you can't talk about Pennsylvania. You can't talk about the most famous American that's going to come out, Benjamin Franklin. Benjamin Franklin is awesome. His story is very, 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 very cool. Benjamin Franklin is not a president of the United States. Common misconception because he's so famous, but he is not a president of the United States. So he was born in Boston, ran away to Philadelphia at age 17. So he is going to be around a really long time. So we're up late 1600s now, 1700s, when he is a young boy. So Benjamin Franklin, when he is really old, he's at the Constitutional Convention, or at least the Declaration of Independence. He is a pivotal part and is very much considered a founding father, and rightfully so at this time period. He is on the $100 bill. Just because he's on a $100 bill does not mean that he is a president. He is a founding father, has a lot of good ideas. A lot of the reason probably why he never got into American politics is he was old as dirt by the time America exists. The Revolutionary War and all that had ended, and America exists. But everybody knew him, and he is, not only is he famous in America, he is famous worldwide. He had all types of cool inventions that he did. So even while he was alive, he was crazy famous and popular. So this is him in a $100 bill today. Here's some of the inventions that Benjamin Franklin did. And again, so Benjamin Franklin, the reason we're spending so much time talking about him right now is he is the first like born and bred person in America that is worldwide famous. All right. So he creates the bifocals. All right. So not bifocals doesn't mean your eyeglasses. All right. Because glasses had existed. What he did is different lenses on the top and bottom. So if you're looking at something far away and then down, that the lenses change. So he invented the bifocal. Another thing that he invents the wood burning stove. Like, it's sometimes when I hear that I just didn't realize that stoves weren't a thing. So to cook stuff up here, that wasn't a thing. People had like big hearse fires and like pots that would like boil, and then like that wasn't a thing. He invented the wood stove, which all this is metal. Now this is I took this off somewhere online. Somebody's selling it. So this is a modern picture. You think I can get it in higher quality if it's a modern picture, but it'd be a chimney going out here, so it's not hooked up right here. It'd be a chimney that goes out the top, or just a pipe that takes the smoke out the top. Put wood in here. This whole thing is iron. All right. So you put the wood in here and you start a fire. This whole thing heats up. It does a bunch of different things. Number one, it heats your house. Now you want to make sure you have it on like stone or something here. They are crazy heavy. If you've ever had one, or if you're like me and had to move one when you were a child and about had a hernia doing it, they're like 1,000 pounds. They're crazy heavy. So not only does it heat up and heats the entire house, all right, the smoke goes out the top. This part right here on top gets super hot because it's metal, and you can cook on top of it. Like, that wasn't a thing. There were no stoves inside. Like, that wasn't. It's a game changer to be able to cook and heat your house simultaneously on the same wood. Extremely efficient, and everybody's going to want it when that comes out. And then let me talk about this story right here. This is some bull. All right. So Benjamin Franklin discovered electricity. True. He does. He doesn't invent electricity. Electricity, like lightning, is electricity. He didn't make it for the first time. He didn't invent it. He discovered it. Now, the famous story of him out flying a kite with a key attached to it, all right, is just, it's one of the more surprising myths that have endured the time period. So Benjamin Franklin is super smart, and he always invents stuff, and the reporters come over and they want to see what he invented. So he comes over and he's been trying to explain to them electricity, like how he has discovered it and all this other stuff. He understands it's into storms. There's a connection to storms and electricity with the lightning and how it ionizes stuff and whatever. I don't know. I'm going to start sounding like a scientist and then run because I don't know. But what I do know is he is very aware if you tried to fly a kite in a lightning storm, you're going to die. Like, you gone. So he somehow figured out electricity, how to create it. So there's a reporter that comes over to interview him about this, and he's trying to explain it to him. And the guy's like, all right, so how'd you discover it? And he like probably tells him the complicated way he's done it. And he's like, what? Like, what? I don't get it. And then Benjamin Franklin, because he's a joker, probably said sarcastically, Yeah, I just went out and flew a kite in a storm and had a key tied to it, and then the lightning struck the kite and went down the key, and then I put it in a little jar, and I had it. Like, he's just being sarcastic. And the journalist probably doesn't know enough and just goes and reports this fact, and this legend gets born, and everybody just believes it. But now they like believe in electricity, so it meets the ends that Benjamin Franklin needed by having this interview, and he never really brings it up again. Like, he never really talks about it. There's no way somebody as smart as Benjamin, first off, you die. If what he says happened, he's holding a kite and the lightning struck it, and he would die. He would. So clearly the story isn't what happened, and there's no way this man is this smart to actually have this picture here be anything that's accurate. And it's like, anybody that really thinks about it for a couple seconds, they're like, yeah, that probably never happened. But we don't really know what the other way was, so we just let it keep riding the history books. But yeah, this didn't happen. He did discover electricity. He didn't do it this way. This one right here, I think, is the cool is where I like him as a person. Benjamin Franklin, he wrote a book every year called Poor Richard's Almanac. Now, Benjamin Franklin, by the time he started doing this, was crazy popular. He wrote books all the time, and people wanted to snatch him up left and right. So all the rich people would run out and buy all the books, all right? Anything that had his name on it, they would buy it up immediately. Well, there was no Weather Channel or anything like that, so there is a farmer's almanac using a whole bunch of like smarty pants stuff. They can figure out pretty much what the weather is going to be like, when you should plant, when you should harvest, when you should do this or that. So it's extremely important. And Benjamin Franklin has the knowledge that he needs to give to all the farmers. However, he's going to create a book called Poor Richard's Almanac. The problem is the moment he puts his name on it, all the rich people are going to come buy it up just because it says Benjamin Franklin. So he literally writes it under the name Richard Saunders, all right, under a fake name. And this is an actual photocopy of it. You can look how awful condition it is. Nobody cared about it because they're like, he sold it for like next to nothing. The rich people didn't go buy it. It allowed it for the poor people, who were the actual farmers, to go out and purchase it. And it was very necessary. There's not a ton of copies of it left because nobody took care of it. You only needed it for a year and then trash it. The moment he, later on in life, and the Poor Richard's Almanac had gotten super popular, and he's like, yeah, guess what, guys? I'm actually Richard Saunders. Everybody's like, what, mind blown? So by the time he tells everybody this, there's not a lot left. But so like whenever you talk about Poor Richard's Almanac, they always talk about Benjamin Franklin, who did write it. But for the most of his life, he was writing it and wasn't even making money off of it. He just wrote it because he knew it was what was best for American society. So Benjamin Franklin is really like the first American, like looking out for American society. And for that reason, he's famous and rightfully so. Need to reiterate, though, not a president. He was not a president. So Benjamin Franklin was never a president. Friends with presidents, absolutely. Well respected. Does do some political stuff. He gets sent over to France and all that. Benjamin Franklin is also a known party animal. So, like, whenever the politics happen, when he's older and America exists, and they bring in people from other countries, they go send them out with Benjamin Franklin to go party, even though he's like an old man in his 80s at the time. So Benjamin Franklin, he's the life of the party. Unless they come out with like a whole bunch of really horrible stuff in his closet, which constantly happens in history when you learn more things about people. I'm a big fan of him. A big fan of Benjamin Franklin. Think he represents America well. Unless, one of y'all gonna be like, oh, I read a story about how he, genocide. I don't know, something horrible about him. Like, well, then I would retract it. But from my understanding of him, he's a pretty awesome person. So the question here is just name 2 inventions that Benjamin Franklin is credited with. And explain them. Talk about quite a few. All right, now we're going to talk about the southern colonies, all right? So the southern colonies, all right, so let me move myself down here, all right? So I will color myself in here, boop, and we'll say yellow. All right, so up here, you got your, beep, 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 beep. All of this in here, These are all your New England colonies. Let's not do that color. Let's do this color here. So look, all of this here, these are your middle colonies. All right. And then all this stuff down in here, these are your southern colonies. So New England colonies, super religious. Middle colonies are more merchant type stuff. To oversimplify, it's a more mixture of people. The southern colonies are agriculture. All right. So the southern societies are agriculture and mainly cash crops. So these are tobacco, and then eventually, and we'll talk about it in America, when will be cotton, but not right now. We'll start talking about cotton more maybe next unit and a little bit after that, when cotton really takes hold. Right now, it's tobacco. I'm just not real. Tobacco is misspelled. That. Shame self for not spell checking. So tobacco spelled with an O. All right, here, look, I gotta fix this for us here. All right, we're gonna go O. That's a 6. Oh, not easy to do with a mouse. Oh, tobacco, not tobacco. Tobacco, whatever. All right, so demand for tobacco was very high in Europe, but the supply was low. So America, the colonies, the southern colonies, can mass produce it. So the planters start being very wealthy because they're able to mass produce tobacco. The problem is, by mass producing this much, you really need it's very, very much labor intensive, which means you got to have a lot of people to grow it. And you need lots of labor to get rich. All right. So put 2 and 2 together, the way humans were working at the time. Slavery, absolutely going to be a thing in the South. They don't start out necessarily with slavery, because to purchase a slave in modern money today, buying a slave be about $70,000 by modern money. So you had to be very wealthy to purchase a human being, much less purchase a bunch of human beings. So there was cheaper ways of getting all this labor than paying that much money. So widespread use of African slaves for farming in bulk was not super common. African slaves absolutely existed, but as far as being the primary source of agricultural work, initially it was not the case. So the question here is, I hadn't talked about it, I will here. How can farmers survive growing just cotton or tobacco, considering you cannot eat either of them? So these are called cash crops, because you shouldn't eat tobacco and you shouldn't eat cotton. If you are, stop it. It ain't good for you. All right. So they're cash crops. You grow these things and then you sell them around the world. And you get money for it, and then you purchase the stuff that you need. So you're not growing it for sustenance, all right? You're growing it in order to be able to sell it and make money off of it. Trying not to confuse you, but there is a third thing that gets grown in the South. Actually, there's 3 things at the time. Tobacco is one, and cotton is indigo, which is used for dyeing clothes, all right, which is a cash crop. And this was one that's going to throw you off, rice. America grows a ton of rice in the South, but it's considered a cash crop since we don't eat it, but we can grow it, and we have the climate and the geography to grow it, and then we sell it to the rest of the world. So I usually don't even put rice in here to not confuse you. So typically, cash crops are stuff that is not eaten. So how can they survive growing these things, these cash crops that they can't eat? Well, they grow them, and then they sell them and use that money to buy the things that they need. All right. That's as far as we're going to get today. Just getting a kind of intro here to the southern colonies. We'll start talking specifically tomorrow, going through like Maryland and North Carolina, South Carolina, Georgia, and how they got their start themselves. All right. See you guys tomorrow.